ladies and gentlemen. This is Trisha with Insectopia. I do want to just make sure my audio is okay. I haven't heard it back yet. So, Susan, if you want to just let me know that you can hear me okay and that we are all good, I'd love that. Because I just set up a brand new computer. So it's exciting for me because I have a little bit newer technology, but also, we work out the bugs as we move forward. Fabulous. All right, confirmation from Susan. So, we are looking at a Bess beetle today. Now, Bess beetles are fabulous. They have they're kind of semi-social. So instead of being fully social like ants and honeybees that not only care for one another and not only care for one another, but they have roles and jobs in the colony. Bess beetles are going to care for one another, but they don't all have individual jobs, meaning they kind of live in family units. The adult Bess beetles will actually chew up rotting wood, and they will partially digest the food, and then they regurgitate it into the baby beetles or the grubs' mouths. They also build themselves little homes in fallen trees. So the adults will go through and they'll make little burrows like an ant would make, kind of trails through the wood. And then the Bess beetles, they can make 13 unique noises. And Susan made a joke. She said, "Don't work out the bugs." Oh, that's really funny, and I love it. Fabulous. Bess beetles, they can make 13 unique noises. And those noises range from a really, really high-pitched stridulation. Oh, that's a good science word. Stridulation is the act of rubbing two body parts together to make a squeaky noise. Or you can use the word stridulate. So, for instance, crickets stridulate. So when they make that chirping noise, they're rubbing their wings together. And so that's one form of stridulation. But some beetles, like 10-line June beetles, they actually rub the top of their abdomen against the bottom of their elytra, I believe, to make that kind of squeaky or hissy noise that 10-line June beetles make. Anyway, these guys make those guys make a high-pitched squeaking noise to scare predators away. But they also are going to kind of knock their heads against the wood to communicate that way with the rest of the colony. And they can make pitches that are both so high-pitched and so low-pitched that humans can't hear them. But we have record of them because of high-tech computer microphones that they've put in their colonies. I mean, how cool would it be to be that scientist? Bess beetles. Oh, I'm going to write this down, but we are going to continue talking about them because not only do Bess beetles care for their grubs and actually feed them by mouth to mouth, the grubs are also rule breakers. Specifically, the rule that all insects have 6 legs. All right? Every single insect on the entire planet, if it has legs, it has 6 legs. We hear this over and over again since the minute we learn about what an insect is in comparison to the rest of the world. See, the thing is that nobody tells you that Bess beetle grubs only have 4 legs. they're missing two pairs of legs. And I believe it's the hind pair. They look like they almost have like a little coxal stub. Like it looks like they almost still have a little bit of a hip there on that third tarsal or that third thoracic segment. But they don't have a leg. So I find that fabulous, admittedly. And I kind of enjoy learning about the rule breakers. And so Bess beetles are definitely one of those insects that are really super unique, and they're rule breakers, which makes me smile. Now, in the United States, we only have one species of Bess beetle. There is a variety of species, all right? You can find other kinds of Bess beetles in other countries, on other continents, but the species, that's not right. The species that we have here is Odontotaenius disjunctus. Now, I'm going to double check the spelling of Odontotaenius, because admittedly I thought I had it copied and pasted, and I just want to make sure I got it right for those of you. I did. Where'd it go? I thought I just saw it. I wanted to double check. There it is. All right. Yeah, I got it right. Look at me. Awesome. I never doubted myself. So this is the scientific name, Odontotaenius disjunctus, for all Bess beetles on the planet. Bess beetles are one of those insects that I regularly get asked about. Sometimes teachers bring Bess beetles into the classroom, and admittedly, when I was a kid, I found a big colony of Bess beetles. And I took the beetles and gave them logs and watched them turn an entire terrarium of log into just sawdust. It was kind of fabulous, but I didn't know back then that they were subsocial and that I may have left behind their eggs or their grubs, looking back on the time of year. So it's always good to know a lot about their life history and things. All right, so Odontotaenius. Now, we are looking at this Bess beetle from a dorsal perspective, but here's the thing. I have not personally drawn a Bess beetle from a lateral perspective, and they've got a cool head shape on the side here. That is because they've got a cephalic horn, meaning a horn on their head. I'm also going to increase the lighting a little bit. I don't know if anybody noticed, but I can move the microscope screen and draw at the same time. So that's kind of exciting for me. My new computer has enough thoughts to be able to do both at the same time. Let's see. I need to overexpose this image a little bit so that we get a little bit more light. See, I want to be able to see all those cute little hairs. Yeah, see? Much better, microscope. All we needed was a little light. Yeah, I think we're drawing this from a lateral perspective. That's fabulous. Okay. Background information about the animal. So we've already done we did a little bit of the behavior. I did kind of go off on a couple minute tangent about their life history. This specimen here was collected in March of 2022. So admittedly, this beetle is a newer specimen. And it was collected at Palmyra, which is in New Jersey. So that is where this specimen is from. Bess beetles are actually fairly large, and because the computer is brand new, I don't have the scale calibrated, but this beetle is fairly large, right? So let's go ahead. I can measure it with this ruler here. From the front of the head, if I include the mandibles, all the way to the back of the abdomen, this specimen is approximately 3.3 centimeters. I almost want to say 3.2. It's going to be really close in between those. I'm going to say 3.3 though. 3.3 centimeters. And when you find one of these beetles as a child, it's just super duper exciting because they're a big sized beetle and they make fun noise. Honestly, it's great. Let's see. My computer's decided to be a little bit frozen. We're sorting it out right now. Okay. I think we're good. Okay. Love the lateral perspective. We've done dorsal. Yeah, good. Okay. Yeah, I love that. I love that horn. And we didn't really get to look at that horn really well when we drew it dorsally. This specimen is actually so heavy, it's tilting my styrofoam. So I'm trying to kind of center it a little bit better on the styrofoam. That's why it keeps wiggling. But I will be done moving it shortly. That's good. I'm happy with that. Aw, look how cute. Okay. Lateral. Now, let's just start. Keep in mind we're starting nice and light. We might have to shift shapes, so make sure your first sketch is nice and light, and then we'll go back through and zoom in and do even more fine detail. So right off of the bat, one of the things that I noticed that I want to kind of draw is the head kind of without the mandibles and without the horn. So what that looks like to me is going to be, we've got this vertical line here that's not going to be super tall because you also have that horn that comes off of the top and the pronotum is pretty high. So we're going to have this little line here and then we're giving it a D shape. So kind of like this, but I honestly, I think a D is pretty realistic. I almost want to make it a little narrower, but you can see on the bottom side that head does kind of protrude down just a little bit. So when we add the mandibles here, which I'm just going to take a shot in the dark. Let's see. I'm going to actually make this at least a little bit more narrow though. Because if I start adding the mandibles that are approximately the same width as the head, we're going to come kind of out from the center here and then kind of scooping downward like this. So that's how I'm going to go ahead, and that's kind of the front mandible. We're also going to, if you want, we can give like a back mandible behind it. So that's a head, and then obviously I'm not gonna do the back mandible. Actually, what I think I accidentally did is I made this mandible a little bit too big because we need to take into consideration that, so we have to go just a little bit lower. Yeah. And then those are just estimations. All right, so now we're moving back from the head really quick. The first segment on the top of the thorax is called the pronotum. So that's this kind of big shield here behind the head. The pronotum is in line with right about at the middle of the compound eye, which is right about at the top of these mandibles. So if you were going to line that up all the way across, that is going to be where the pronotum starts. This specimen, it's kind of tilted up quite a bit. The pronotum, when they're walking around, they are going to walk with the body kind of more straight. In this case, my specimen is just kind of tilted a little bit. That's fine. All right, so right here, the pronotum is going to go up a little bit higher than the head. And then come on back. If we were going to take a measurement, you know what? We can do ratios if we're using pixels. All right. So that is 1, 2. This is 1. This is 1. That's like a half. So if you were going to try and measure, you could take the length from the front of the mandibles to the back of the head, and the pronotum is 1.5 that length. So if I was going to eyeball it, I would say that we're going to go right around here. Maybe a tiny bit shorter. All right, so we've got a pronotum here. That's specifically the top segment, and we might even kind of give this more of a U shape. And keep in mind, when we zoom in, we'll finalize a lot of these shapes. Now, we do want to make sure we've got this front leg all sorted, so that front leg is going to be coming out right around here. I'm just going to give it a circle as to where it's going to go. Now, let's scooch this specimen, and I think that our camera view is still live. Yes. Oh, that's awesome. All right. So now we can connect the pronotum to the mesonotum, right? So it's got this little bit of a waist here. I think it's kind of cute. You can actually see the top and the bottom of the waist in this drawing, or in this viewpoint. Man. I wish that we were seeing it from a directly lateral perspective, because I feel like there are a couple, maybe if I tilt it this way and push it all the way in, it won't pull the styrofoam over. Because there are a couple of things that I'm moving in my head that I think it would just be easier if we could see it from a strictly there we go, because now we can see the lateral line, and we don't have to worry about twisting the elytra, which is what my brain was trying to get around. So now we can see the pronotum. You can see that there is a little bit of depth on the bottom of the body, which is something that I was hoping we would be able to see. So coming down, we actually have some depth here. Yeah. That makes me a whole lot happier. And then this is going to come all the way across. So that kind of waist-looking shape is only going to be strictly noticeable from a lateral perspective right here when the elytra goes back up. Okay. I like that much better. We're doing good. Susan says, if I were to find a live one, how easily could I hold it in my hand? Would it chomp my finger? If you found a live one, you can easily hold one in your hand. Would it chomp your finger? Maybe. Does it hurt? No. I have definitely had Bess beetles chomp at my fingers in the past. I love them, but it's not like they can't break your skin, and it doesn't really hurt a whole lot in my experience.
GPS signal lost.
My phone is going somewhere. Yeah, it doesn't hurt. I don't remember what I was talking about. My phone has lost its GPS service in the middle of the night. We're gonna just turn this off really quick. Okay. All right, let's do this. So we've got kind of this head, this pronotum kind of sorted. Let's go look at the elytra. And I'll write that word down for us. All right. So the elytra are the front pair of hard wings that a beetle has, and I would almost argue that many times I don't regularly see Bess beetles flying. In fact, I do know that they can fly, but I feel like they're just a really large beetle to see flying, and they regularly are going to be staying in their homes with their families. But once or twice, I have had Bess beetles fly in to a blacklighting sheet. So it is something that they do, especially if it comes to being kind of nighttime. So if you were going to measure the front of the head to the pronotum and then multiply that now by 1.5, that's going to give you the length of the elytra. That's kind of funny, but it really does come out to right about like that. So I'm just going to give myself a nice kind of straight topped elytra here and then arch it down kind of at the very, very end. The end of the elytra here is, you can see it's pretty round. And you've got this really nice wave happening on the side, but because I am doing this in pencil first and then going back over it, I am okay with giving us just kind of one straight line that's going to come back, because then when we give a solid line, we'll be able to see kind of in perspective to our straight line where the line is kind of up or below. It's the way I like to do it when I'm starting out. Now, the abdomen is visible, not connected to the absolutely very end, but a little bit in. We're going to take that out and kind of just arch it over. Then we've got the entire bottom of the body. These are the sternites of the abdomen here. And then we'll be able to kind of add legs as we need. These legs, the hind leg is right about in the center of the elytra, so we're going to say right around there is where that hind leg is going to be. The middle leg, it comes, the femur comes out just right around here. In this perspective, the leg looks kind of pushed in, but it's right around here. And then the front leg is very close, but you've got the front leg going forward and then the middle leg going backwards. And I think that because the elytra is so long, kind of this is a nice oblong beetle, it makes sense that those hind legs are so pushed far back. Now, I think it's kind of funny that the grubs only have four legs and the adults have 6, and I can't imagine like being one of these Bess beetles and just like eclosing from the pupa and having an extra pair of legs. All right. That gives us a really nice light outline of the entire body before we start doing some really fine details. So let's go ahead and zoom in, and we're going to look at the head. Now, something I want you to notice right off of the bat is the amount of setae, or the amount of hairs, absolutely covering this beetle. And now that we're totally sideways, we're going to be drawing this head a little bit more rectangular, and that's okay. Setae, it's insect hair. And I'd like you to think about their communication system. Their communication, instead of being through a lot of chemicals and pheromones and things that a lot of ants and honeybees use, they are primarily a sound. They communicate via sound. 13 unique noises, that's what they're leaning on. So having all of these hairs around their body, I would just have to assume that those hairs are going to help with them to hear, or at least least some of them have to be, because those hairs are going to help them feel the vibrations through the wood and through the tunnels that they are crawling through. All right. Gonna see about lifting my paper a little bit because I drew the beetle kind of small. Okay. I think that'll be fine. All right, so the head is nowhere near straight down. Look at that. The head kind of has this interesting angle back that the pronotum kind of cuts into. So if instead of giving this kind of D shape, I'm going to take up from this corner and I'm going to come kind of on a diagonal and backward just a little bit to the edge of this pronotum here, and then I'm going to give diagonal and kind of forward up to right about where I had it. So this is actually going to be the true back of our head here. Now that we have that sorted, the top of the head, instead of starting way up there with that fun D shape, the top of this head kind of comes down a little bit and follows the same arch as this pronotum. So if your pronotum is right about where you want it to be, that'll actually tell you, okay, I'm going to take this line and I'm just a tiny bit down, but it's going to be down enough to kind of follow that pronotum. Now I'm seeing the front of the head here. I'm not going to do the outline of the horn until after I get the head done that's in front of it. So we've got this kind of ledge, and I love that on the top left and the top right of the ledge, it almost looks like it's a little bit higher, because I think it makes it look a little bit like an not an eyebrow, but like an eyebrow bone. There's a word for that, but it's a human word. I don't remember all my human words. All right. Unless they're a bug word, because I can remember femur and tibia. All right. Let's see. We've got this cute little part here where we're gonna have that left side and the right side are both higher, and we've got kind of a concave arch in between them. And then from here, I'm going kind of straight down. Now, one of the things I'm seeing is that we have this little bit of a shelf that is going on top of the compound eye. You can see that compound eye is big and nice and round, but then right along the front edge, you've got that little bit of a shelf. And normally the way I'll draw a shelf is I will give it kind of an extra segment in here that's not connected to either edge. Something like this, where I would kind of imagine this is going to be where I'm going to start, and I'm going to kind of wrap around like it is the compound eye, give myself the little kind of ledge here. That's actually going to be pretty small, and it's going to be pretty small, but that's what we're doing here, is we're noticing this fine details. Alright, so we've got that little bit of the ledge, and then that ledge is going to come kind of towards the edge of the head, but I'm not going to connect it because I don't want it to look like two completely separate pieces. It's just a shaping of that one. Alright, so this line comes down and straight in front of here. And then I want to get my compound eye in there. So I want to get this compound eye nice and round and filling in this space here. Let's see, right about. Make sure that your compound eye gets goes a little further than that ledge so that the ledge is actually cutting in and above the compound eye. Okay. Inside of any compound eye, I like to crosshatch, which means giving diagonal lines in both directions. That's going to make sure that your compound eye has lots of little individual lenses that we call ommatidia. Yeah. All right. So, the bottom of this head here, I'm going to take down, and at a diagonal, that's going to be where the mandibles are actually going to be connected to, at least the front pair of mandibles. And you know what? When we are looking at this beetle from a completely lateral perspective, only one is visible. And that makes a whole lot more sense. So the only line here that's left in kind of this funky looking head shape that we will fix as we move through this is the bottom convex line here. The thing is that we've got those antennae gonna kind of move through, so I don't want to draw this line until we get the antenna through, so we don't have to erase it. All right. So we're going to leave that open for now. We're leaving that open for now. Let's focus down towards the horn. All right. One of the things that I love about the cephalic horn here is that it almost looks like it bends at this 90-degree angle. That is spelled like this, by the way. Cephales, C-E-P-H-A-L-E-S, is head. So if you have ever heard of like a disorder called like hydrocephaly, it's where you've got like water expanding your noggin. Cephalic horn. It's a horn on the head. It reminds Matthew of the sorting hat. I love that. I kind of agree. Where would you sort Bess beetles into? After hearing about kind of a little bit about their behaviors and their biology, where would you sort the Bess beetles? And we gotta make that horn actually pretty tall. It goes over the edge of the head here. But not like that. That's rhinoceros-esque. Welcome, Matthew. You just got here. That's okay. Susan says Hufflepuff. I almost want to agree with you because they are the only beetle that I know of that well, nope, I lied. There are other beetles, but there are not very many beetles that are like semi-communal and like sub-social. Like they care for one another. And I think that that's kind of a cool trait of these beetles. All right, so that gives us the horn was nice and focused. Now I want to look at these mandibles, and then we'll scooch all the way back and we'll do the antenna. But all kinds of things to say about the antenna. But right now, let's just specifically look at the mandibles, which I brought up to my students today or yesterday, and they were like, "What?" I said it was a mandibulate insect, and it occurred to me, I don't know if I have taught you or mentioned that any insect that has mandibles can be described as a mandibulate insect. So this Bess beetle is mandibulate, meaning it has mandibles. That's the same for like tarantulas that have chelicerae are chelicerate. Susan is curious about what makes these beetles subsocial and not fully social. A fully social insect is going to be broken down into castes where everybody has their own unique jobs or their own jobs to do. So, a fully social insects are like termites and honeybees and like ants. Because they've got like workers, they have their own tasks, they're all working together kind of in a colony, whereas Bess beetles, they live in family units, they do communicate with one another, they do chew their own like tunnels and burrows throughout the wood, but like, and they all share kind of all of the tasks. They're all just kind of existing in the same place and helping one another out. So that's why we say they're subsocial. But they also all feed all of the babies. Like they kind of mix and match. So they care for their young too. But all of them care for the young. It's not even males versus females. They all just live together and care for each other. That's kind of sweet. Yeah, they're Hufflepuff. Alright. We still have the length of the mandibles approximately the length of the head. So if you look at the head here, it's actually fairly large. So I want to make sure that my mandibles get nice and big, but they also start here, right? So you've got to give it that, at least that. Now, let's see. The top of the mandibles has a little bit of an arch, and then we've got a little bit of a tooth. Teeth on the mandibles are called dentations. Oh, no. I'm going to give you guys all the words today. So, we've got a dentation up here. A little mandible tooth. And that looks too big. Don't mind me while I smack the camera. Okay, well, we're going to try and see what happens. Alright, we've got that concavity and a second tooth before coming down. And then I'm going to make sure that this stays kind of flat, so I need to make this come up a little bit. We're working on it, and I want it to be a little bit more I'm gonna be happy with that. Alright, so we've got this mandible happening. You can, if you would like, add the extra kind of seedy up there on the top of the mandible because we're not going to be coming back to that region. Let's go ahead and get our, well, I kind of want some, I want a little bit of texture on the side of this mandible. Maybe not. There's something missing, but we'll figure it out. Alright, so now we're going to get to this antenna here. So let's move it up. Can we count all of the segments from this angle? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I thought that it was 11. I think Bess beetles have 11 antennal segments. But I do want to make sure that I'm correct. It's also nice to just show you, too. Because the antennae are cool. You counted 10 at that angle? One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Matthew, you're right. 11. All right. If that last big one is one segment, it is. That last one is one big segment. So let's talk about what kind of antenna these are. A lot of times when I'm looking at when I'm looking at an introduction to insects, it's a key I've been using to identify some of the beetle families. They refer to this antennal type as both clubbed and lamellate. Now here's something interesting for me. When I use the term lamellate antenna, I'm imagining antenna that kind of come out like a 10-line June beetle, where those antennal segments kind of open up, they're wide, they kind of feel around, and they can kind of close perfectly in on themselves. But this book defines lamellate as an asymmetrical club, and then they say whether or not the lamellate antenna can be opened or closed, interestingly enough. So sometimes there's like little changes in how they define words, or like how sometimes our definitions are slightly off. So I'm going to show you an asymmetrical club. So, in comparison to a symmetric club. So, a symmetric club would look like this. This is a 3-symmetric of symmetric club. Because if you were to take this segment, if you were going to take the center of those middle segments and run them through the center of the antenna, that club itself is symmetrical. But then if you wanted to draw an asymmetric club, you would have to at least have slightly more on one side than the other. That's an asymmetric club. In this case, the asymmetry is actually pretty strong, because you can see all of those appendages that are almost like finger-like coming off of the edges. Those are definitely asymmetric in comparison to the center of the center of the antenna there. All right, so this one is symmetric, and this one is asymmetric. These two. So this is what we would call an asymmetric club or a lamellate club, depending on who you are. All right. We've got scape, pedicel, and flagellum for the antennal segments. Is that protrusion on the head like a bracket holding the eye in place? Oh, that is really, really funny, and I love it. Admittedly, it looks a little bit like that, but that is not the case. All right. The scape is the first segment of the antenna. It's that big, fat, kind of wide, rectangular one that looks like it's almost underneath the compound eye here, and that's because it is. So we've got this kind of nice, wide segment here, and then we've got 1, 2 little small rectangular or small kind of square segments here. Then we've got 2 kind of longer, I would almost say subtriangular segments, where they're kind of narrow at the base and a little bit wider on the outside, almost like the end of a bootcut jean, but kind of small. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. There are 2 more kind of small rectangular, small square segments that were like segments 2 and 3. So we're going to get a little big eye here. A little bit higher. All right, and then after that, that's where the the club is going to take place, but mine has gotten a little bit big in comparison to the head, so I am going to try again really quick and just shrink some of these segments and pull them back a little bit so that my antenna doesn't get too ridiculously large, because I want to make sure that it not only has the proper number of segments, but that it also takes up about the correct amount of space. 1, 2, and then this guy here, 1, 2, and then the 2 square ones, 1, 2. That's better. All right, now our goal is going to be to draw that nice fun club. Make sure those fingers go in towards the head, so that is going to be a 3-segmented 1. Try and make sure that they're kind of rounded at the end and not super sharp. 1, 2. All right, and then this third one here is just one nice big round segment. Make sure that it kind of rounds off on the bottom and is asymmetrical, so it's got to come up towards those mandibles there. There we are. And because we've got the antenna all sorted, I can give myself a convex arch on the back of this head here. And I think we're closing in on having a decent sized head. I'm going to just shade a little bit above this mandible to show there's a little bit of depth and there's one behind it. I think that that's going to make that makes my brain happy. I like that better. Okay. Oh, that's, Susan, that's a fabulous question. You're wondering if that would mean that skippers have lamelate antenna, because the hook is technically not a symmetric club. The thing is that the butterfly, the end on the butterfly's antenna is not what we consider a club. It's considered a knob, which arguably a club and a knob sound very similar. But here's what the difference is in antennal anatomy. The knob of a butterfly or a skipper, it is wider than where it is in the beginning, but you don't have an exact number of segments that the club or that it is, right? Because there's no way to say, all right, this is where the club starts or this is where the club starts. A knob is gradual and you can't say where it starts or where it ends. So this is a knob of a butterfly, and then a club is going to be more direct. Like you're going to have a handful of segments here, and then you're going to say, oh my goodness, these 3 segments are definitely the club. So that's going to be the difference. And it has to be a club to be lamelate. All right. Let's go look. I think that we've got the head mostly sorted. I'm pretty happy with where we are with our head. Let's go and look at the side, make sure we're not missing anything that it's too important. Can you hear the squeaking of the styrofoam? Because a couple of these times it was actually kind of loud. I still have a little bit of messing, I think, to do with this horn. I think that maybe I want it to start just a little bit further back to make it a little bit wider at the bottom. That might help a little bit. All right, this is the pronotum of the beetle here. This shape here I'm actually pretty okay with. So this is this convex line. Goes away from the center. It kind of blocks off a little bit of that head there. Make sure that your pronotum does go above that cephalic horn, but once it gets right about here, I think that my pronotum is still kind of arching a little high, and I want it to stay almost a little bit lower. So I think that that's right about where I'm going to be drawing my dark line. Let's see. And start here, kind of come up. Alright, and then I might even draw this little crease right there at the very, very top of the Bess beetle. I'm going to make sure that it doesn't touch either side because it is actually not a suture. It's not a separation between sclerites. It's just a fold. Alright, this here is kind of, it's almost sharp here on the edge, so I'm not going to round it off too much. And then instead of coming straight down and then angling over, I'd like us all to notice that that the pronotum kind of cuts that corner a little bit. So I'm going to arch it just a little bit more than that, but we are going to we're not going to try and go straight down here. I want to cut this corner that we had planned, like that. Yeah, and then once we get there, we'll notice that we're already kind of at an angle here, so we're going to kind of bring it back up at an angle here, and that is what's going to give us our full pronotum shape. This is the sclerite, or the segment on the top of the first segment of the thorax. Lots of words. All right. So now we are looking at the leg here. Should we draw the leg next? I think we should. We're going to draw this beetle from the front to the back. Yeah, let's do it. So the head kind of does come up in this direction, but we do want to make sure that we do have the bottom segments of this thorax here all sorted. So we are going to kind of imagine them nice and round here. They do get a little bit narrow at that waist portion, so it's going to kind of come up a little bit, flatten off, and then come back down. That is happening kind of in between the legs, but it may be noticeable depending on the way that we swing these legs. So that's going to be the shape for the bottom of the body, and we're going to worry about the elytra momentarily. First, we want to get the legs all sorted. Now, all of the legs on the insects, they have a femur, just like your femur in between your hip and your knee, a tibia, just like your bone between your knee and your ankle, and then we have metatarsals, but beetles get tarsi. The teeny tiny toe segments. And I am attempting to find a front pair of legs that is easily visible on one plane. And I think that the front legs on the other side are actually exactly that. So we're going to see what they look like. I think these are going to be good. I think that's fine. We are going to have to shift this leg a little bit if you want to be able to count the true number of tarsal segments. Because I think one or two of the tarsal segments starts before you can see it on this image. But admittedly, looking at it from this perspective, that's what we can see. But we will go ahead and turn it so that you know the true tarsal formula before the end of the night. All right. I'm going to erase right around where we had that little circle where I know that the leg is going to exist. We're going to add the femur. Now, the femur is primarily coming towards us, so it's going to almost look pretty short, even though it is going to be longer in perspective. So, the bottom side here, I'm going to draw a little kind of like a C going upwards in this direction, and then this is our femur here. Now I want the top of the femur to go a little bit further than the bottom, because then I can draw this at an angle, at the end of the femur at an angle, and then the tibia can come down down from that. So the tibia, look, it's got all of those really cute tibial spikes. I almost want to call them spines, but those aren't spines. What's the other term we use? That spines have joints and spurs. Spurs have joints and spines don't? I don't remember the difference. Okay. Tibia. The spiky guys on the outside. That's what we're going to call them. So, it looks like the tibia reaches to about underneath a little bit before the bottom of the compound eye. So I'm going to say, and the femur, we actually have the femur about right. So the tibia is going to come until right about there. And I did it nice and light because the inside towards the beetle I know is going to be pretty straight, but then once we get to this outside here, you've got all of the spiky bits. Now, you also have what appears to be two small tarsal segments and then a raindrop segment, and they're coming out, I'm going to say right about here from the middle of the end of this piece. And I'm going to draw these first, which is one little rectangular segment, second little rectangular segment, and then this is what I call a raindrop segment, which is kind of narrow at the base and round at the end. And I want to make sure that it's a little bit more flat. With two little claws at the end. Alright, so we've got those. This feels funny to draw the tarsal segments first, but here's the reason why. Because the far side of the tibia is going to come down almost kind of rounded with that spine kind of behind that tarsal segment. This comes up, and then we've got a second spine here. So if we have that tarsal segment, those tarsal segments kind of already working a little bit, we can fit this, we can fit the end of the tibia around those segments. Cool trick. All right. Now it looks like we've got, let's see if we can count these. After the first main one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but the fifth one is almost like just a little bit of bump. The 4 and then a little bit of a texture. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and texture. So now I'm going to try and redo that even better. All right, start from the end, stay nice and round, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's better. All right, so we're going to call that a day. That is our front pair of legs, the pronotum, the head with the antenna, and the mandibles. Awesome. Let's look at let's go move back on the body. How many of you have ever seen a Bess beetle in real life? Have any of you ever seen or caught one before? I wouldn't say that they are a rare insect, so I would take out a guess that at least one of you have seen them before. Oh, that is something I remember about Bess beetles. Look at that. Do you notice that the edge of the pronotum here is getting a little bit of a glare all the way around the edge? It's because the edge of the pronotum has a really, really crisp, clear edge. And when something like that, especially the pronotum, has a nice clear edge, I like to give that full kind of, I like to double the line a little bit because that, to me, makes the edge look nice and crisp. Oh no, Bags is at the edge of their range. Darn it. And Matthew, admittedly, they're trickier to find in Michigan than I want them to be. I have found them in Michigan in the past, but they're not common here. They're actually more common if you go into like Kentucky and Tennessee and further south. You can find them regularly. Like, I get all excited when I find them, but yeah, they're a little bit tricky in Michigan. Even if you get to New Jersey, they're pretty okay to find. I haven't found a good spot in Michigan to find them in, but I'm gonna go with they're a little bit more rare here. All right. I was trying to decide where we were drawing next, but I think what we should draw are the elytra and finish up the body so that we can add the legs. All right. All right, the top of the elytra is pretty straight. There is a little bit of a downward bow in the first third, but it's not by a whole lot. So if you don't want to add that, I would argue you don't have to. But I'm going to start right about here on the left where it starts to go down, and I'm going to follow this line back, but I am going to give it just a little bit. Just a little bit. Yeah, like that. All the way over to the edge. And then that edge does look like it comes almost at a 90-degree angle right there at the base. Yeah, it comes down pretty straight, but I would also say it's not sharp. That's not a really sharp corner. Coming down, the edge of the bottom edge of the elytra are in the correct spot, but there is the one thing that we have to worry about, and that is right above where the almost looks like right after the hind leg is connected. So right around here, this is going to be the highest spot, and then it's going to go back down. So we're creating this kind of angle where it goes up over the line right after the hind leg, and then it comes below and then back through. Let's go ahead and scooch the beetle a little bit to the end so that I can make sure that we are right about true with that. Looks like this has got to go just a little bit longer. But also, I'm thinking we're going to shorten the elytra just a little bit. We're going to pull these in here. Right about like that. Nope. It does have to go out just a little bit more. Okay. I'm going to darken this line here. So just following that upward arch. Happiness. And I'm going to go back through and erase any of those sketch lines and then come back over this as necessary. There we are. So now we have the beautiful elytra of the Bess beetle here. And you can draw a little bit of a straight line up there on the top, attempting to kind of align it with this thin line here. Although you are going to want it to parallel whatever you have. So if it's if you've got that arch happening, you do want that to kind of come down. Let's see if I can get it kind of thin though. Yeah, more like that. In this case, I would say these are not actually striations. They are not long grooves along the back of this beetle. This is going to have what I would like to call, I would call them linear punctations. Meaning that they are situated in lines, but what you are looking at are not grooves, but little individual pokes or little individual holes that are just all lined up. I also like that there is a pretty nice kind of edge at the very edge of the elytra, so I'm going to follow that. And then this shape here is going to be carried forth by those linear punctations. When you get down to the very end of the beetle, instead of them connecting to the very edge, a lot of them are kind of like U shape. Although this one, there's a U, but it's kind of wide because in between there is another line. So it kind of comes down and makes a U, and it circles one. And then above we have the one that's way up on the top, and then a V in here. Something like that. So that is going to be the elytra, or those front really hard protective wings of the Bess beetle. Uh-oh. Okay, So I thought we could just look at the leg on the other side. But then I realized that the leg on the other side was glued back together. And so instead of showing off that side, I decided to pull this guy out. And there's a couple of things that we're noticing at this point. They do have 5 tarsal segments. So even though we only drew 3 on the first one, it's because those other 2 were kind of hidden amongst the those kind of spiny parts at the end of the tibia. There are a few INAT observations in Baggs' area. Yay! Maybe you'll find one. Here's to hoping. They're actually they're great creatures. Okay. We are looking at this middle leg from a ventral perspective. So we're looking at it directly from the bottom, which is why we can see the entire femur and the entire tibia in its full length. Now, this is not exactly how we would be seeing it if it was walking around with us. It would be much more like the front leg, except flipped over the vertical axis. So I'm going to imagine right about here, we're kind of lining up the base of the middle legs with the bottom of the elytra here, because funny enough, the elytra are technically connected to the first segment of the thorax because they are the front pair of legs, but the middle legs are connected to the second segment, but they're connected really close. So they end up being really very much next to one another. Moral of the story. So, backwards C, or like the letter D part. And then the femur is moving backwards. It is wider on the base and narrow as it goes forward. So we're going to make it kind of get a little bit narrower. And then we do want to make sure that the top of the femur is longer. Keep doing that with this pencil. We need to make sure that the top of the femur is longer than the bottom, so kind of right there on that angle. That also gives us the ability to make this tibia come nice and down. The tibia is going to have all of those crazy spines and things. They're just on the other side. So the one on the top is going to be the smooth one here. And then we've got, I'm going to make kind of a little, needs to be a little longer. Kind of like that. I do kind of want to, I do want to rotate this and look, but I also want to make sure we draw these tarsal segments first. So, 1, 2, 3, 4 small segments and then a raindrop segment. Four tarsal segments and a raindrop segment. Alright. Now let's go and actually look at what this middle leg does look like from a lateral perspective, just so that you can kind of see. It's just that the way that this beetle was pinned, its middle legs don't look like it's walking. They're kind of at a flattened perspective. So that's what the middle legs look like. You can kind of see where they're connected to the base of the body, but then on this specimen, the femur goes way up in that direction, and then the tibia comes down kind of underneath the front leg. It's just not a natural pose, so that's why we kind of got the legs going out in the right direction. Now, let's go look at the hind legs. So notice the hind legs have the same issue in that they are kind of very flat. But let's see. The femur is going to be nice and round and coming backwards, kind of the same as that middle leg here. So I'm going to just kind of preemptively draw this femur. And then in between the middle leg and the hind leg, the body looks a little bit convex. So we're going to arch that down just a little bit in between. Then to finish up this leg, I do think it's smart to just go ahead and look at it from the top. And plus, then we will have looked at these legs from every direction, from the side, from the bottom, and from the top. Although it looks like the hind leg the tibia on the hind leg doesn't have those spines on the outside, so it makes me wonder if maybe the middle leg also was smooth on both sides and just had the spines at the end. Because look how pretty that looks. Let's go look at the middle leg really quick because it's got me. Yeah, look at that. Okay, so one of those things that we talk about in nature journaling that I accidentally rushed through a tiny bit is actually like looking and noticing all of the small details and things and not assuming how things are going to go. So this middle leg here is actually smooth. But I'm glad that we went back and looked at it. So the tibia is going to be the same way here. The tibia is going to stay nice and narrow until kind of the end, and then it's got all those spines at the end, and then you still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tarsal segments. So 4 kind of smaller round segments, and then a raindrop segment with 2 claws. It's so cute. All right. Let's look at the what the abdomen looks like from the side. I think we are very close to being done. But I am always available for questions, comments, concerns. If you have any curiosities, I can answer them. Okay. All right, this is the bottom of the abdomen. I can also see 1, 2, 3, 4. I can see at least 4 sternites. So those are abdominal segments. Now, these abdomen kind of arches down like this. The last segment of the thorax is going to end right about where the hind leg comes out. So that's going to be the end of the thorax. This whole region here, from behind the head to right about there, is the thorax. This little bit right here is the abdomen. We're going to put 1, 2, 3 line dividers in here that look like this. 1, 2, 3. And now, our Bess beetle has an abdomen. It's so cute. All right, very good. That's what my best beetle looks like. Does anyone have any region on the beetle that you would really like to see in a little bit better detail, or from a different direction, or a different perspective? This is what the mandibles look like from the top. Once I get them into focus. Come on, you can do it. That's the top of the head. Focus down. Focus. Cool. I like the directionality of the hairs in the mandibles. Alrighty, so that is our best beetle for today. If anyone out there in the chat has a suggestion as to what kind of insects they want to look at next week, or maybe even a suggestion just for the order in which you would like to look at an insect, I will go ahead and write it down for us. I do not have my live stream closer because I'm teaching from the abyss, so I'm just gonna go ahead and go through all of the things like it was here, which is go ahead and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, just so that, and press the little notification bell so that you can get a notification when we go live. And when you subscribe, you also get to chit chat in the chat box. I do want to thank Bags and Matthew and Susan for hanging out here today and actively interacting with me. The interaction part seriously makes the whole thing worth it, because it gives me the ability to say hi to you, to hear some of your jokes every now and again. I love all of the jokes all the time, but they always make me smile. So yes, thank you so much for doing that. Now, I do teach classes on OutSchool. Those are classes for students ages 5 to 7, 9 to 11, 13. Oh, normally I'm taking this stuff down, but the camera gave me away. 5 to 7, 9 to 11, 13 plus. So student ages that would like to learn about insects. We have a good time. We draw together, and we talk about new insects with their life histories and all types of stuff. Let's see, what else? Find me on Facebook and on Instagram at Insectopia 2015, which is the year that I was established. And if you really love the class and you learn something and you think, man, that girl deserves a coffee, go ahead and there's a PayPal donation link in the chat box, just in case you are feeling like it. Honestly, though, I just love spending the time with you. So don't feel like you have to hang out here. If I don't have any further questions about best beetles and or any suggestions on what we want to look at and or draw next week, I will be saying you adios, farewell, adieu to you and you and you. All right, I hope that you have a fabulous rest of your week. I look forward to seeing you next week, and stay buggy.